Hello and welcome back to Amygdala Vids, and today we're going to be looking at a specific part of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, specifically coming from the first chapter. This concerns the idea of fighting back, coming from the rising up section of the chapter. Now I had this whole skit planned out for this episode going off of Dr. Strangelove, but then I realized I'd have to put all these disclaimers in this video because it's Jordan Peterson and people feel certain emotions towards this guy. People either think he's the worst thing since Sing, or that he's the greatest thing since this YouTube channel. Me personally, I got better things to do than whine about him on the internet. I'm just trying to grill. So hopefully I've conveyed to you that I'm coming into this thing with relatively less bias than either a Peterson worshipper or hater. I'm just an idiot with a microphone. Now on to the topic of fighting back. Peterson wants to address those folks we know that can fight back, but won't fight back. But just as often, people are bullied because they won't fight back. This happens not infrequently to people who are by temperament compassionate and self-sacrificing. It also happens to people who have decided, for one reason or another, that all forms of aggression, including even feelings of anger, are morally wrong. So Peterson highlights two types of people who won't usually fight back: those who are compassionate and self-sacrificing, and those who feel like all forms of aggression are morally wrong. Now, I'm as knowledgeable in psychology as stormtroopers are at aiming, so I'm going to mainly focus on this second group of people who choose not to fight back on moral grounds. The type of people who could fight back if they didn't think fighting back is wrong. Now let's explore some reasons Peterson gives in favor of fighting back. First off, he looks at the practical consequences. If you say no early in the cycle of oppression, and you mean what you say, which means you state your refusal in no uncertain terms and stand behind it, then the scope for oppression on the part of the oppressor will remain properly bounded and limited. The forces of tyranny expand inexorably to fill the space made available for their existence. People who refuse to muster appropriate self-protective territorial responses are laid open to exploitation, as much as those who genuinely can't stand up for their own rights because of a more essential inability or a true imbalance of power. So by fighting back, you limit the power of the one oppressing you. And we do know of examples of people who just keep taking beatings and don't stand up for themselves. And then these beatings just keep continuing without stopping because the victim won't say no. So I'd say generally speaking, Peterson is right. But, and there is a but, there are exceptions. Now many schools, in an effort to reduce fighting, try to push the whole ignore them and they'll get bored response to bullying. I don't have any statistics telling me which is more effective at reducing bullying, but I could definitely see some people pushing buttons just to get a reaction. Like, there's all those rage compilations on YouTube. It's almost like some weird spectacle, possibly because in normal conversation we're more reserved. So fighting back could possibly lead to more oppression if you are explosive rather than calm and direct. And speaking about the whole ignore them method, it ain't all sunshine and rainbows either. Maybe some bullies get more out of their actions rather than your reaction, I don't know. Also, maybe Peterson should have been more specific about what is meant by fighting back. For example, I think about MLK's method of nonviolence and how he succeeded over his enemies in that case. Is his nonviolent approach a form of fighting back? Or does fighting back actually mean putting up your fists or yelling back? How would you guys in the comments define fighting back? So now let's move on to Peterson's next objection against the non-fighter backer. Yeah, I know that's not a word, and I don't really care. Naive, harmless people usually guide their perceptions and actions with a few simple axioms. People are basically good. No one really wants to hurt anyone else. The threat of force, physical or otherwise, is wrong. These axioms collapse or worse in the presence of individuals who are genuinely malevolent. Worse means that naive beliefs can become a positive invitation to abuse, because those who aim to harm have become specialized to prey on people who think precisely such things. So the second part of that brings back our earlier conversation about inviting harm. But also, I guess this makes us wonder if the type of harm matters. Con artists and swindlers bring a very different harm than bullies, for instance, and perhaps that difference should help dictate a different response. Now, in regard to the first part, I haven't met many hyper-naive people who think that people are basically good and that force is always wrong. Maybe I roll with a different crowd, but I don't know. When Peterson describes this person, I think of some hippie named something like Sparkle Moon. And they're out in some grass field dancing around like the sound of music while singing about peace and love. I think though that even with those people, if you really grill them, then you could get them to admit that force is sometimes necessary. You just gotta bring up some atrocity in history and ask them if they think stopping that through force would be a good thing. I guess you could say the rest would be history. So I don't know, if any of those types of people exist out there and they are somehow watching this video, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts below. So what did we learn? Well, Peterson gave some reasons for fighting back, the most important probably being the reduction or elimination of future oppression, but some nuances arose here and there. Hopefully you found this discussion somewhat helpful, and if not, then hopefully it at least gave you something to think about. And if not, then you could really get back at me for wasting your time by hitting that subscribe button. Either way, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I wish you all a beautiful rest of your day.